Hello everyone. Today we are diving into an exciting project, SCP framework, Rogers Communication. Ever wondered how Rogers, a telecom giant, stays ahead? Well, though, their sustainable, competitive, and profitable strategies, of course. So, let's move on to the introduction part. So, in Canada, the telecom industry is mostly controlled by a few big companies, which is called an oligopoly. This happened after the government allowed private companies to take over the industry. So these companies provide important services to all the 38 million people living in Canada. So in 2021, the total money made from selling these services was $51.3 billion, so which increased by 4.1% from year before. Most of this money comes from wireless services like cell phones, which makes up 53%, and fixed internet like home internet, which makes up to 36%. One of the biggest players in this field is Rogers Communication. They started in 1960 and have their main office in Toronto. They have about 22,000 people working for them and offer lots of different services like cell phone plans and TV shows. So Rogers is also known for being a big part of Canada's telecom industry and for helping technology to grow. They operate in a market where there are only a few other big companies like Bell, Canada, and Telus. So together, these companies are helping Canada to have some of the best internet connections and online access in the world. In the next slide, we are going to discuss about structure, conduct, performance framework. First of all, let's discuss about structure analysis. So Rogers Communication is a big player in Canada's telecom world, as I mentioned before. So especially in areas like cell phones, internet, and cable TV, they have a big share of the cell phone market, about 32%, as you can see in the diagram. So making them one of the top providers in the country. So they make a lot of money too, showing that they are one of the main money makers in the industry. But it's not easy for them. They have to compete with other big companies like Bell and Telus. The competition is tough, and the market is already filled with these big players. So there's a special number called the HH index, HHI, which is Herfindahl-Hirschman index that measures how much one company controls the market. In 2021, the number was 2744.02 for the wireless retail part of the telecom market, which means it's very concentrated. Despite all these challenges, Rogers keeps doing well. They help Canada's economy by making sure all 38 million people in the country stay connected. Now let's move on to the next slide. This conduct analysis. So Rogers Communications offers a bunch of different services for all kinds of people. They have stuff like cell phones, tech, internet, cable TV, home phones, smart home stuff, and services for businesses too. They make sure you can stay connected no matter what you need. Other big companies like Bell and Telus also offer similar things, focusing on making sure their networks work well and that customers are happy. So for cell phones, they have plans, smartphones, and data packages. They also offer internet for homes and businesses and ways to make your home smarter. Cable TV from these companies gives you lots of channels, HD shows, and cool features. They also have homes phone services, both traditional and modern ones with fancy features. So in this big competition, Rogers, Bell, and Telus are all trying to get more customers. They all say their networks are the best, and they'll help you out if you need it. But they might have different prices or extra stuff they offer. Now, let's move on to their pricing strategy. So in Canada, how companies set prices for telecom services follows a rule called receiving party pays. This means different companies use different strategies to decide how much to charge you. Rogers Communication has a smart way of setting prices. They look at what their competitors are doing, how much they want to be known, and what customers think is important. So For example, if we look at basic 5G plans, Rogers offers a better deal than Bell Group and Telus. They give you 50 GB of data for like $55, while the others charge $65 for similar plans, but with different data amounts here. So this makes Rogers look good because they offer cheaper options while still being competitive. Now let's go ahead and discuss about marketing and advertising strategy. So when Rogers Communications wants to tell people about their services, they use lots of different ways to do it. They team up with other companies and use different ways of advertising to make sure everyone knows about them. But other companies focus more on making sure customers are happy, trying new things, and getting involved in the community. So even though rules try to make sure companies give good service, so sometimes it's still not perfect. Rogers, for example, doesn't score as high in customer satisfaction as some other companies. When it comes to new ideas and technology, Rogers, Bell, and Telus are all spending a lot of money to make their networks better. Rogers is also working on making both wireless and wired networks bigger. Bell is focusing on faster internet and putting in more fiber optic cables, and Telus is building a super fast 5G network called Pure Fiber. So Rogers also buys other companies to get bigger, like MTS, Mobilicity, and Shaw, even though sometimes there are rules that make it harder for them to do it. The performance analysis, which is our next slide. So in places like Canada, where there are only a few big telecom companies, they usually make around the same amount of money from each customer. For Rogers, Bell, and Telus, it's usually between $50 to $57 every month from each person who uses their services. Since they offer similar things, the money they make from each customer is pretty similar too. But even though they make about the same from each person, their total profits and how much of the market they control can be different. That's because of things like how well they run their businesses, how much they spend on advertising, and how they decide to set their prices. I think this is our. Now let's dive into average revenue per user. So in markets where there are only a few big players, like the telecom industry in Canada, these companies make about the same amount of money from each person who uses their services. For Rogers, Bell, and Telus, they make somewhere between $50 to $57 every month from each user because they offer similar price packages of services. However, even though they make about the same from each person, how much profit they make and how much of the market they control can change. This depends on things like how much it costs them to run their businesses, how efficiently they do it, and how they advertise their services. Let's go ahead and discuss about conclusions and recommendations. So, first of all, market overview. In Canada, just a few big companies like Rogers, Bell, and Telus control the telecom industry. They are in charge of a lot of different services. They have all similar prices to keep up with each other and stay competitive. Next key point is investment in network and technology. So they all spend money on making their networks better and using new technology like 5G and fiber optic cables to give people what they want and stay ahead. Next is barriers to entry. It's not easy for new companies to join the market because of how expensive it is and all the rules they have to follow. I would like to highlight recommendations. So, making it easier for new companies, what we can do is change the rules to make it easier for new companies to join the market. Next is protect customers. So make stronger rules to protect people who use telecom services. Next is share infrastructure. Encouraging companies to share the networks to make coverage better. Second and last key point is support innovation. So we have to create a good environment for companies to try new things and make new technology. If we Do all these things, it could make the market more competitive. It also gives people better choices, gives better services and fair prices. The last page is just a references list where the information I acquired from. Yeah, that's all from my end. Have a good night.